directed by Blakeson, whose last film was Disappearance of Alice Creed in 2009, which I really want to see. I've been wanting to see it for a while.
It's continuing the trend of sort of plucking indie directors and putting them in big sort of bigger picture.
Bigger picture, yeah. So, story begins with a 16-year-old Cassie, played by Moretz. The Earth's been decimated basically by a series of invasions, waves, including tsunamis, earthquakes, and a deadly virus, and so many people have been killed off. Her mother's died on the virus, and her brother, 5-year-old brother Sam, and her dad, they all go to the refugee camp. She's left behind accidentally when Sam is taken to the refugee camp with the rest of the kids, and she must trek across the world, across the country, to find her brother and save her brother. And with the help of
how far did the trek?
It was like 80 miles, I think, or something like that.
I mean, The Revenant, like Leo does that in The Revenant.
Yeah. She gets shot and is taken in by Evan Walker, who helps her and says that he will help her get her brother back. However, he may not be all what he seems. Now, Evan Walker. It's such a typical. But the first half an hour or so, I was genuinely hooked. Like the tone, it's appropriately bleak. The scenes of the wave invasions, I guess, they're brilliantly well done.
Essentially, what you've just said there is the first half hour. It just takes half an hour.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to set up the film, which I don't mind because it was sort of the best bit about it.
Because they are intense and it's a great soundtrack. I mean, the effects throughout the whole film are pretty naff, but I mean, they were well done in that scene, and I really did like it. But I think as soon as she does get shot, it descends really fast into unoriginality, and I understand there's a formula and an audience that the genre has to pander to, that the film has to sell to and be involved with, but there's a vast amount of plot points that just seem to be pieced together from other more accomplished young adult stories. And the romance between Cassie and Evan, it happens so fast and so awkwardly, and it's sort of the sum of every young adult cliche that you can imagine, and it just really irritated me, because for me at least, it ends up demeaning Chloe Moretz's character slightly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they've developed quite a good arc, and I really did like that first half an hour. It didn't seem to mess in, and the story as time goes on, it gets progressively nonsensical, and most of the scenes at the military are quite unfocused and overplayed, and they're really quite unintentionally funny as well. I mean, Liev Schreiber's Colonel character is, I love Liev Schreiber, but I mean, I don't know what the hell he's doing here. It's weird, but it feels like ultimately, if all of the kids and the teens that are there, I mean, they all got such incredibly, very lightly sketched characters. Maika Monroe's like typically rebellious, no one understands me character, that just ridiculous. She's a better actress than that. In Followers was much better than that. And Tony Revolori as well. The Grand Budapest Hotel is in there. They do nothing. And I think ultimately there's a few interesting concepts, but it fumbles its setup by becoming too derivative, and it takes too long to fall. It falls in line with its genre more than it needs to, and it doesn't attempt to exploit its concept more than it needs to, and it's got that sequel baiting ending, probably the most sequel baiting ending of a film I've seen in a long time. But I really did like that half an hour, and it's a shame that it became something that I didn't enjoy as much. It's a real shame.
I don't think the film sets up Chloe Moretz like Hunger Games sets up Jennifer Lawrence, and Detergent sets up Shailene Woodley. She didn't have that sort of leading lady about her. She didn't seem like a sort of strong enough leading character. She did sort of feel too vulnerable. I mean,
and to her credit, that's what I like.
In the situation, you would be like that. She just doesn't feel sort of hardened enough yet. If there is to be more films, I'd kind of like to see her become a bit more sort of strong, like Jennifer Lawrence does in Hunger Games, without sort of stealing directly from it. I'd like to see if there is to be more of this. It hasn't made a great deal of money so far. It's made back its budget, but that's not really enough for the studio. It's 38 million budget. If there is to be more than this, I kind of want it to just get some fresh ideas and kind of step out of the template it's got so far. The fact that she just basically pines over him over Evan as he's just washing himself in the river.
Yeah.
I get that this audience is essentially young girls, not to sort of generalize, but that is the sort of that's the audience that these films go for. That's where the money is, and it didn't work for me. I like the first half hour, but it is essentially just set up, and it does the same thing that a lot of these films do. They just over-explain everything, and then when it gets down to the nitty-gritty and the twists, which I thought were incredibly obvious, I'm not going to say why, but no. For me, it's quite forgettable. There are things that I like, but there are too many things that I don't like for it to continue as a franchise. That's just me. Scott?
I actually disagree about the first half hour. I was worried, especially when watching the trailer, because obviously the film's called The Fifth Wave because the aliens go about destroying the Earth in 5 waves, 5 different things, and the setup just took too long for me. Really didn't like it. Totally agree about Chloe. Nothing there for me.
No.
She's kind of been in limbo since Kick-Ass, really. Even Kick-Ass 2 didn't really cut it.
Kick-Ass was awful.
So I'm a bit worried about her career. What I did think was great was the fact that they did split the film up into 2 different storylines.
Mm-hmm.
So you do have Chloe and Evan, which is subpar at best, but then you've also got this really interesting part of the kids are taken by the army and trained up to be these soldiers to fight the aliens.
Yeah.
Which, you know, is kind of like poor man's Independence Day.
Mm-hmm.
I did think when they got dropped on the ground towards the end, and they're obviously seeing aliens through their visors.
Yeah.
It reminded me a bit of Battle for LA, which is a film I really enjoyed with Arnett Cart a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I did think that storyline with the guy that was in it, Benny's name is played by Nick Robinson, I think.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that thread of the story a lot more.
Yeah.
But it's got its pros and cons, but you know it is a bit lame, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Not going to recommend it. I think, and the fact that it finished with "Alive" by Sia, that's just a nod to my
The
flatmate
ending
who
was just
plays it
so
all the
single
time.
bait. He was just why?
There's nothing there
Why,
for me.
man?
So